Hi everyone, Ryan Rice. I have the privilege of leading the innovation team at American Family. Excited to be here today, and we're going to talk about American Family and blockchain. But really, if you're okay with it, because I bought the pizza, I want to tell you a little bit about American Family, our view on the future, kind of get into kind of blockchain, why we think it matters. A lot of people are curious when they hear some of the things we're doing. Why would American Family care about this? So I want to just say a little bit about American Family. A lot of you probably know we've been around, we've been in the community for 90 years. We started here in Madison on the square. But you might not know we've been pretty active in growing and innovating and getting beyond kind of our core business. And we're 90 years old. Last year we switched over to a mutual holding company. That's important because some of the things you'll see, our acquisition of Network Insights, for example, allows us to do other businesses beyond just insurance. We have over 10 million policies, 9 billion in revenue, 24 billion in the bank, strong growth, strong financial position. Why does that matter? Because companies that aren't growing and aren't financially strong, they don't invest in innovation, they don't invest in the future, they can't. And you see that time and time again. I talk to the director of innovation at Nike and Keurig, again, when the core business is struggling, everybody gets chicken wing arms and nobody really can look out beyond the next year and the year after. So I'm very fortunate to work for a company that's healthy. I'm also very fortunate to work for a company that has an ethos that I believe in, and I'm able to get up in front of audiences, and I truly am advocating for a company because they do good things. American Family wants to be the good guy. They want to be a part of the community. So American Family Children's Hospital, a lot of money, time, and energy went into getting that built. The golf tournament, which had a big impact on the economy, also raised about $3 million over a couple of years for charities. We're deep with the United Way, and we have a foundation that puts money out locally, and a lot of other things. So why does this matter? Well, when we talk about technology, we talk about data, we're always taking the angle of, is it the right thing for our customer? In fact, I can tell you a true story about something that we thought was innovative, interesting, and a very high-level person in the company said, we don't need more money. Tell me how this is going to make our customers' lives better, which I thought was awesome. So this is a company that is about doing right. And then I'll just tell you a little bit about, we are in the community, but we're going to have a bigger presence in the startup scene sometime this year, anywhere from May to November. The building's being built, the building's called Spark. There's an organization that's going to run the programming called Starting Block Madison. Scott Resnick can tell me if this is the most recent rendering or not. He says close enough. The bottom floors are going to be for the community, so your generator will reside there. A couple other companies, fill in the blank, Scott, help me out. The top floor will be American Family, so our venture capital team, innovation team. But this is going to be interesting because we've always thought the collision between the startup world and what we do is what makes a lot of the magic, and now we're going to be physically located. And I think Madison's going to have our version of 1871 or the factory or whatever you want to, whatever you think is your kind of model for entrepreneurial. So, healthy company, cares about its customers. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing on the innovation front. And so I work in a division that's called business development. It's not really adequately named. It probably could be innovation or something else. But our division is responsible for looking out in the future and for placing bets and making sure that the company's around another 90 years. And we do that in a couple different functions. We have an M&A capacity, so we acquire companies. We have a venture capital team called AmFam Ventures, which Vic, if you raise your hand, Vic is on the AmFam Ventures team. They screen probably 1,500 startups a year, and they invest in certain themes that they think align towards the future of insurance. I am on the innovation team, which we are really the test kitchen. So we get our hands on technology, we go build things, we try them. We fail often, and the stuff that works, then we have the hard problem of figuring out how we scale it. We started as any typical innovation team. The head of a company says, oh my God, the world's changing, we need a department. And as American Family's ecosystem has grown, we have started to lean more towards the disruptive adjacent space, and we started to actually build stuff. So we are building startups inside American Family. I'll tell you that we don't compete with AmFam Ventures. In fact, it's very synergistic because we don't want to build a company that we don't have some unfair advantage. I would rather invest in somebody in this room if we have no structural advantage. So the stuff we build has to be, we have a leg up because we have customers and we have a certain capability. And then we partner, we have a data science lab, which is sort of pioneering use of cloud and sort of machine learning and deep learning. Some acquisitions we've made. We acquired the General and Home site, which gave us direct-to-consumer insurance businesses. This year we acquired three software companies. We acquired 2 home inspection software companies and 1 artificial intelligence company, which you probably have heard of. And then Amfam Ventures has really been the Lewis and Clark of our team. They're out there and they see trends before they ever develop. They saw a trend in connected home, which helped us realize that maybe connected home and home services could help us have a better engagement model with our customers. This is just a sample of some of, how many, Vic?
I think 47 now.
47 companies. Oh, sorry. We've got new information coming in. Paperwork was signed. We got 50. Here's just a sample of some of them. Revolve got acquired by Nest. Lattice got acquired by a big company, Cupertino. I don't know if it's public or not. And Ring is just exploding. And again, they're the eyes and ears to what's in the market. And then next page is they are really world class. It's interesting. They are top 5 of my list of insurance CVCs. They've invested with Andreessen, In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's investment arm, Goldman Sachs, Google Ventures, a long list of very, very reputable institutionals and other corporate partners. So the innovation team, what we do is we go have a thesis, we go explore, we build, we try things, and we ultimately scale them if they work. So a couple just examples. In the drone space, we had a thesis that drones could help us inspect homes faster, better, quicker. So we go do that. We figured out, we built a team that's now inspecting homes with drones. Ring, Nest, and Home Advisor, we led a lot of the early testing with customers to figure out what they think about connected home, how it plays with insurance. All of this is using human-centered design and lean startup. And then we actually built a company I'm very proud of that helps the financially challenged get access to extra work. And that's called Moonrise. Go to moonrise.works to find out more. They launched in Chicago, and it ties into the General, who sells high-risk auto, to really people who are struggling financially, which unfortunately is about over half of our country right now. And then Decision Hub is some cloud-based software. So we've gotten to the point where we're actually building real products, real companies, and going to market with them. Okay, so that's enough about Amfam. That was for the pizza and the beer later. Thanks for your patience with me. Let's get into blockchain, and I'll start with the future of insurance. So this is sort of our perspective on where things are headed. Risk is changing. People don't worry about the great Chicago fire anymore. People worry about cyber threats. Autonomous vehicles are going to reduce as accidents and have actually declined over time, accidents and deaths on the road. It's going to really hit an interesting curve when vehicles get smarter, drive themselves, and have safety equipment. So risk is changing, and our perception of risk is changing. If you think about the sharing economy, the fact, what is Airbnb? Is it a commercial property or is it a personal property? Insurance companies, their heads are exploding. It doesn't fit in the box. So risk is changing in a real way, and how we think about risk is changing. Second point, which is driving a lot of the change, is that customers expect more. So your next experience, the bar is set by your last best experience, regardless of who you had it with. So if you have a great experience with Amazon, and you have a great experience with the billing on Spotify, then you go to American Family and you say, why is this so complicated at American Family when it's so simple over here? You don't think about industries, you think about your experience. That's a big deal because the insurance experience today is not fantastic. And there's a lot of evidence to show that. There's a ranking that BCG does, and it shows the insurance experience below the DMV. And that's not where you want to be on the chart. So insurance in general isn't something you think about, it is something you're passionate about, you love. And the experience itself, if you really think about the buying process to the servicing to the claims, it's subjective, it's not very transparent, what you're covered for, what you aren't covered for. It's a lengthy application process. There's no apples to apples really on, is this policy, I don't even know what UIM, UN is, what does this stuff mean? It's opaque. And we believe, and that's relevant, I think, to what Mike's going to talk about how we see smart contracts and blockchain changing a lot of that. We think insurance companies of the future are going to leverage tech to delight customers. Believe it or not, I believe that. If you knew what we were doing with home services, connected home, I think we will get there in terms of really making people say that's a brand that's helping me. They're helping me prevent bad things in my home, and they're also providing the insurance in the back end when bad things do happen. I also think they're going to deliver new products, and they'll be extremely efficient because they'll leverage technology, lots of different technology, to automate and drive down the cost structure, which then means possibly lower prices for you. It means better products. Right, so Mike's going to jump in and go through more blockchain. This is how my brain has to follow things for me to explain it to other folks in the insurance industry. I think you have to start with currency. And going back to thinking about, if you've read the paper by Nick Szabo on money, I think it's great because shells were actual currency in the United States when the British government wasn't producing enough coins. They used shells because that's what the Native Americans used at the time, and that was a valid currency to exchange goods and services and store value. For me then, I moved toward into digital currency and a lot of the precursors to Bitcoin to understand how digital currency came about. And then really with Bitcoin being sort of the first sort of currency that had used blockchain in a way that stayed around a while. And then the different evolutions, or Mike doesn't like the word evolution, but generations that came after Bitcoin that allowed things like smart contracts. Well, what is insurance at the end of the day? It's a contract. So that's really our journey on how we kind of got to from blockchain to smart contracts. We're going to assume stuff on the left you're not that interested in, and Mike's going to pick up kind of right in the middle and go to the right if that's okay with you.
So I'll take over from here. Can you? Oh yeah. So I'm kind of backing into why is AmFam interested and how is AmFam interested in blockchain technologies, and I just first want to lay out some of the general features of blockchain technology, especially in its first iteration with Bitcoin. No centralized control, no middleman, Byzantine fault tolerance, solution to double spending, faster transactions, immutable ledger. And then just a pictorial representation of what decentralized is versus centralized and distributed. And this is just kind of an example of what an actual blockchain would look like. So keeping those features in mind with the technology, you think about disrupting financial institutions. And currently or previously, if you wanted to send money from one country to another country, that could take up to weeks. And there's a lot of middlemen in that process. And because of those previous features, that ends up being a perfect use case for disruption by blockchain technology. It gets rid of the middleman. Transaction times are improved significantly. Basically, all of those features fit in perfectly, and that's why blockchain ended up being in the form of Bitcoin and other payment processing coins ends up being successful in some regard. So, financial institutions are under threat from this type of technology. Banks, payment processing systems, governments, governments control currencies and they can print additional currency and devalue your currency. If it's decentralized, they no longer have that power. So this is kind of just a graphic showing the interest increasing of financial institutions as they continue to look at Bitcoin and blockchain and think about how it could be disruptive to them. So in addition to more generally blockchain technology, just also wanted to touch on smart contracts and how it adds additional functionality in the form of a Turing-complete programming language that's on the chain. This can add additional transparency and automation to products on the blockchain. And so these are just some examples of cryptocurrencies that include that type of thing, but it's not an evolution, but it is like a continued advancement and adding of additional features. And so that's another feature set to keep in mind as I keep going forward from this. And so an example of a possible use of a smart contract would be Walmart's deal with IBM to do supply chain management of their food. Essentially, there's many points in the supply chain for food where something could happen and it's kind of gray and ambiguous right now. Companies don't really necessarily know what's going on with their product at every step of the way. And if you have smart contracts and a ledger, you can keep track of each point along the way. And if something goes wrong, that can be referenced because it's auditable. So that's just kind of an example there. So another example of something utilizing smart contracts, but in the insurance space, would be AXA's FISI, which is a flight delay insurance. So currently, if you book a flight and you have flight insurance, even if your flight is significantly delayed, it's a huge ordeal for you to go through to submit a claim and go through the process of doing that. FISI and other smart contract applications like this really reduce the burden on the user because there's an oracle that handles the flight data and will cross-reference that with whatever your smart contract is. If certain specifications are met, the policyholder will automatically get their claim. And not only is that great for the consumer because they don't have to actually submit a claim, but it really reduces the personnel cost because you don't have to have policy experts on the other side working for the insurance agency. So another example of smart insurance, of insurance utilizing the blockchain would be EtherRisk's Jamie crop insurance. So this is still kind of a demo level for them, but again, think about a situation where you're a farmer and you want to protect your crops against bad weather, basically. High heat index for several days kills your crops. You need to hedge against that. So you take out crop insurance, and if the temperature, say, is above a certain level for a certain amount of time, say above 70 degrees or 80 degrees for 5 days, again, there's an oracle which is a trusted source of weather data, and that can be referenced for the smart contract, and a claim can be made in this way. And again, that's great for the farmer because they don't have to actually submit a claim, it'll happen automatically. And it's great for the insurance company because they don't have to have the personnel pushing papers around internally. So finally, that kind of brings me to, so what exactly is our perspective on blockchain technology, keeping in mind both the general feature set of blockchain that I laid out and some of the additional features that smart contracts add to that. And it's kind of two parts, because if you look at organizations as a whole, there isn't actually a ton of value to be gained internally from implementing blockchains. Some of those features aren't always necessary or necessarily desirable. If you're trying to improve your business internally, there's other technologies that you can use that are going to be a lot better for that, more efficient, more cost effective, just other types of digital transformation. Conversely to that though, places where these are actually really valuable are external connections to other entities or organizations. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that organizations don't always want to share all their data together, but they do want to share some of their data. So it's a restricted access, kind of bi-directional blockchain. And there's a ledger that can be audited later for transactions between organizations. So kind of an example of the inter-organizational transactions would be the establishment of, there's many consortiums within an industry where a consortium will handle a blockchain, and then separate entities within an industry will all interact with that blockchain in order to speed up whatever transactions they have between each other. And so, but it is important to look at this from the lens that this technology could significantly reduce cost by making things more expedient or automatic, but that may not be defined as super disruptive as a whole because it's not changing the underlying business model of the businesses involved. So it can make each company more efficient in the process, but it's not changing the business. So if you look at that from that perspective, okay, so this isn't fully disruptive. What is something that could be really disruptive? And that would be DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. And essentially what these are organizations that are built on blockchains and operate their business model pretty much strictly through the use of smart contracts. And that really could change fundamentally how businesses are structured, but there is still a place for expertise in a model like that. because even a DAO in whatever industry that it is going to require an oracle as an information source. So businesses that are currently experts can become oracles to this new kind of structure. So that's just one example. And then finally, kind of what are we...
And the media are exploiting the Parkland, Florida
Sorry,
shipping.
that's okay.
Apparently my NPR turned on.
So why are we here today? How are we thinking about this? First of all, we're hiring talent. So we're looking for individuals who are passionate about this. We've assembled up a pretty rock star network and team that's going to go build. We are the test kitchen. We're getting our hands on this stuff. We're going to go produce things and throw them out in the market and see if customers want them. There's a lot of sort of real products that we think we can build, from parametric to parts of our value chain like subrogation and digital identity, and we continue to just kind of explore. So I want to open up briefly for some questions, and for Mike, Vic, or I, anybody in the audience, but thanks for your time, and thanks for having us here.
Are you partnering with any current projects, like blockchain projects?
You mean like a developer community for?
I don't know, whatever.
We're part of the Ethereum, Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Or that Riskblock
Risk
Alliance.
block. We looked at was it IB3?
B3I.
B3I. But again, a lot of big companies that want to create a consortium and want to create a more private network. I mean, that's not, in my opinion, yet. We're still learning. I don't think that's highly disruptive. That's an efficiency gain on an existing business model. So I think we are working with some folks in Toronto, Vancouver, locally, just to really more extend our developer toolkit and build. I think that's focused. I can say Vic has screened a whole lot of companies. Vic, do you want to talk about kind of what Ventures has seen out there?
Yeah, so we look at stuff outside of insurance, but we're still getting our feet wet, I would imagine, like the rest of the community. As far as insurance, yeah, Mike already touched on, like, there are a couple things about people using blockchain for insurance where it's kind of like just making a lot of back office operations a lot more efficient, just like all the other use cases in every single other vertical that you've probably read about. There's also crypto applications for insurance, like Mike touched on, Ether risk. What I find far more interesting is instead of doing blockchain or crypto for insurance, doing insurance for blockchain or crypto, because this is just a whole new asset class. There are all these new models of risk that are out there. So even like think about insuring an exchange. Like, I mean, that sounds monumentally insane, just given how many hacks there are and the like outsized level of risk. But something I think about is like a privatized FDIC. Imagine you could have your hot wallet be insured. The other thing is that all of these companies that have done ICOs, they cannot get commercial insurance coverages. So every single shop on the square, no matter how small or mom and pop it is, they all have these certain commercial insurance policy, like a business owner's policy. So if somebody comes in and trips, they'll have some kind of liability up to $1 million or something. Augur, Gnosis, Gollum, none of those can get an insurance policy, because when they go to a broker, the broker will go to a market, will go to like a specialty lines insurer, and the insurer, they have no idea how to price the risk, much less select for it in the market. And so they'll just offer a totally, a very exorbitant price that the company can't afford. So these ICO companies, or these companies that have done ICOs, have gone to lawyers and they say, well, what do we do if we can't get insurance? And they say, just write an ironclad terms and conditions, and then to the end user, and then just like fingers crossed. But clearly, we're going to reach a point where that crypto world and real world is going to clash, and they're going to go to court. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what if the fines are going to be in crypto or what the judge is going to do, but it's something we have yet to see. So I think that's another. There are all sorts of new insurance opportunities with the burgeoning sort of asset class and just new companies that are coming out there. So that's something that's personally interesting, and something that I think is also interesting to our ventures team. So yeah.
What are your biggest challenges when thinking about blockchain that you've experienced?
It's people, you throw the word around, I think, with no sort of understanding of it. It is like the internet or mobile, or and I think there's a lot of people that are a little anxiety that they, and companies need to figure this out, but they don't know what it is, they don't know how it applies. So there's a huge educational gap. I think access to talent is a problem. We didn't look at it years ago, we could have really focused on it, but it wasn't until we honed in on what the customer problem in insurance that we were trying to solve for, because we're very much human-centered design. It wasn't until we really saw that it's some of the pain points with insurance. It's a lack of transparency. It's a lot of things we talked about that we decided to really focus on it. And when the light bulb went off that this could be disruptive, could be eliminate a lot of trusted third parties, which is kind of what we are. That I think we really doubled down and started to spend time on it. So I don't know if you guys have any perspective.
I guess my answer would be figuring out the best use case to pursue. In general, it seems like everybody wants to apply blockchain technology to any problem they possibly can. As we kind of talked about in this presentation, we've come to the conclusion that there's obviously places where it makes sense. It could give you an efficiency gain. There's places where it doesn't make any sense. But additionally, we in innovation can build things that are adjacent to our business, but even with that kind of wider net that we can throw, it's still difficult to choose what is the best place to start? What's the best product to build, at least first? The first block is maybe the hardest one.
The only thing I'll add is that insurers are by definition risk averse, and also we're one of the oldest and quite possibly stodgiest industries, still based off of data science. And so we've been around 90 years. We have a lot of historical longitudinal data. We can sort of model out claims and loss ratios and all of that to put together how much to basically price the risk. And so blockchain has been around since Satoshi's white paper essentially, and it's also extremely risky. So those two things have kind of sort of been, I guess, a bit of a hurdle, but now, the cat's out of the bag, and now it's a race to get in there.
What are your thoughts on micropayments and the shift of culture of accepting micropayments as a society, right? Kind of the sharing economy is a shifting culture. What about micropayments, shifting culture? For example, let's say, they want to give you cash back in your insurance if you drive well, right? You actually really drive well, smart contract, then I can have a micropayment than actually stopping at a stop sign versus doing a California stop.
I think that that's totally possible. There's obviously a lot of tie-ins to other technologies that have to happen there. You have to have a really connected car via IoT or something, accelerometer that links back to any kind of smart contract or policy that you have. Do I think it's feasible? Yes. I think that it'll be, in that particular use case, it'll be a little bit long coming, but it's possible.
What about advertising? Right? If I'm liking something and 10 other people like it, should I get micro credit for that?
So
they're selling my advertising. It's anonymous. But
So we tend to probably think more about micro insurance as an opportunity as opposed to micro payments. So I just want to be insured for the next 15 minutes that I'm going to take the zip car across town. And if I'm driving 150 miles an hour, wouldn't my insurance rates probably be metered? You can imagine sort of a metered world where you're insured for whatever it is that you want to be insured for. Just like travel, I think the travel example is great. Everybody hates it when their flight gets disrupted. You missed the wedding, you missed whatever it was. You just want to get on the next flight. So I think we think of probably more micro insurance than we do micro payments, but they're kind of intertwined a little bit.
I would also like to add the cryptocurrency Steam and Steam it with the social platform. They reward you if you produce good content. Other people in the community can basically tip you for putting out good content, and that's an example of a micropayment via cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So I really like what you said about blockchain not being good for internal use cases. It doesn't really make sense, and that it's better focused towards external things. Do you have any specific use cases that you're thinking about in terms of Anthem working with other, or I guess partnerships, but specific projects that you're thinking about for that?
Do you want to talk about it? Yeah, you're involved.
Well, we're part of the Risk Block Alliance, joining that, but these are the non-disruptive, in Ryan's terms, use cases such as insurance subrogation, first notice of loss, like when you have a claim or damage to your house and you call in your insurance company, and there are potentially a lot of stakeholders or partners involved in that loss. There's a proof of concept going up right now with Nationwide, where they're doing your proof of insurance. So many individual insurance companies now have a proof of insurance application that you can say, instead of having a card, you can look on your phone. Well, imagine with, from a blockchain perspective, that's a national or worldwide concept where your credentials are available and the police can pull up to a scene and tap your phone and you have immediate proof of whether you're insured or not. So those are some of the real, like, again, whether these are disruptive or not, remains to be seen, but those are business efficiency, customer improvement, customer satisfaction, customer retention. If those are available in one company, we want to be able to at least be on par with them, to have that.
A good example is what we call subrogation, but you and I get in an accident, you have State Farm, I have American Family, our claims team has to work with State Farm's claim teams to figure out who pays what. Imagine a third party or distributed organization that did that for all insurance companies. And think about the cost, the legal fees, because a lot of these things end up going to court, we try to settle if there's issues, but imagine if there was a system with defined rules and transparency that let those companies settle all those without any human intervention. The cost, the total cost across the market, I don't even know how we calculate that. It's a pretty big opportunity. So when I say disruptive, I just mean it doesn't blow us off the map. It's existing business model, but much more efficient.
The interesting part in some of these conversations, though, is you can imagine some of the biggest insurers at least the nation are involved, having everyone agree on how things are going to work. Because that's what you're doing now is, okay, we all agree with this smart contract, this is how things are going to work, this is how the customer journey is going to proceed, so it's interesting.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about trusted hardware recently, so how do you guys see that working, like for example crop insurance? If you're going to have these smart contracts that auto pay out, like let's say on the amount of rain, so how do you guys see the relationship of trusting the data sources? Like, is that going to be AmFam?
I think we would be a great oracle. Yeah, I think we're talking about oracles. And I think if I think about this future where the middlemen, any middleman needs to really think about the value they add. What's the value we add? We've got 90 years of data about stuff that goes wrong in people's homes, in people's cars, at their farms, in their businesses. Who better to be an oracle? And we are essentially a data company, so that's a great point of view. I don't know how are we going to set up an oracle? How are we going to ensure that it's the right one? That's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Definitely there's going to have to be some kind of like validation verification process before you accept anything as a trusted oracle. So I can't really define exactly what that would be.
And looking at the pilots in this room, Chris and Taylor, multiple systems of redundancy. So it has to be like 5 separate oracles validating that there was this amount of precipitation between this band of color of whatever, and then if it checks all those boxes, then the payout gets. But then it does bring questions like, well, what if there is some discrepancy, and then at what point code can only do so much.
And there are parametric insurance products today that use oracles, and there's some that use earthquake based. So they use the USGS shake scale. And that's good enough. That's determined as the oracle. Now, is it always 100% accurate? Probably not. But they deem that as the best source of information about earthquakes.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Cool.